All right. Okay. So everybody, get out of my room, please. Thank you. All right, Dane, thank you so much for being here. This is Affinity Photo for Dye Sublimation with Dane Clements from Great Dane Graphics. Dane, thank you so much for being here, and take it away, sir.
All right, thanks for having me here. So I'm in our industry, right? The apparel industry. I'm kind of known as the Photoshop guy. I've been working in Photoshop since version 2, before layers and things like that. I mean, ancient. And so I'm still a Photoshop guy at heart, right? That's the program I love dearly. But I gotta say, about a year and a half ago, I started playing with this Affinity Photo, and I tell you what, it's every bit as awesome. That's why I like to show it. And it's one of the parts I don't like about Photoshop is I got to pay $53 per month per seat. And I got several seats for my artists, right? So the cool thing about this little program, I call it little only because it's the price. It's 50 bucks. One time, that's it, done. And it can do just about everything Photoshop does for our industry, right? We're gonna print something, right? We're gonna sublimate a mug. That's a little painting I did watercolor recently. So if we're gonna do anything in our industry, from t-shirts to signage to stuff, right? It'll handle it. And it also, I get a lot of questions. I got a lot of questions coming up into this particular class, and a lot of people are asking, are you going to talk about Affinity Designer at all? And I'm not in this particular class, but what that is, just so you'll know, right, is Photoshop is their image editor for Adobe, and Adobe Illustrator is their vector program. So if you have a cutter and you need an SVG file, or you need a graphic, vector outline to cut your films or cut your stuff, you have to have a vector program, right? Because this is an image editor in Photoshop and Illustrator. Same thing with Affinity. Affinity Photo is their image editor, and their Affinity Designer is their vector program. So literally for $100, you can, one-time payment, you got best of both worlds, and you can create anything for our industry that you want. I mean, because the vector stuff goes in Designer, photographic stuff goes in Photo, and you're good to go. So the techniques that I'm going to show you today, we're going to use a lot of photo stuff. We got full color graphics. That's what Great Dane Graphics is known for. So we'll have some of my art files. We'll change some colors and things. We'll make files look better, that sort of thing. I do want to show you this. I do have a handout for this class, actually, right? And the files that are used in this handout, you can download them when you download the handout. That handout is actually on my website. So if you go to greatdanegraphics.com/Condi-webinar, that's it. It'll get you there. So you can download the handout and download the art files that are in there. It's not everything I'm going to show you today, but it's the ones that are in that handout, so you can follow along. One of the most important things that I like to teach is how to optimize a file. That's what I call it, right? It's I'm going to take an image and I'm going to make it look as good as this image can look, and then we're ready to print. No matter what kind of decorating we're doing, direct to garment, dye sublimation, doesn't matter. We're going to separate it for screen printing. Our first goal is to have an image that looks as good as that image can look, and then we go ahead and decide how we're going to print it. So I'll be showing you my steps in here. So again, I'm not getting, this class is only an hour, right? Not even. What do we go to? I think we go to 11:50, right? So I might stop a little bit before that with some questions if we got them. I do not read the chats well as I go, because I kind of get all involved and start rolling. So if somebody wants to yell out any questions on Sprite's side, not sure if she does that. If not, we can wait towards the end and I'll try to do what I can do.
I will yell.
What's that?
I will yell.
All right, sweet. All right, so I'll go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started, right? Let's see what I can do here. Do that one. All right, can you guys see my screen now? Let me move pictures. I got people's faces around. I got to move them. All right, so I have Affinity. You can still see me?
Yep.
All right, good deal. So I just opened Affinity Photo, right? So first thing we need to do is we got to set up a proper file with resolution and size and that sort of thing. So if I go to the file menu and come down to new, I'll get this dialog box. All right. Now, raster files are different than vector files, right? A vector file, I can create something 2 inches by 2 inches and blow it up infinitely, right? It's just going to recalculate and make it perfect. Raster files, photographs, like I say the word raster, a lot of people don't realize what that is. All it is a photo, right? It is a pixel-based image. So anybody that has one of these cell phones, right, ever took a selfie, you automatically, with that click of that button, created a raster file. That's all it is, pixels. So you have to have your resolution, which means the amount of pixels in your file needs to be high in order for us to print super nice quality stuff. So that's easily achieved when you're creating your artwork from the beginning. So for Great Dane Graphics, we create our artwork at 14 inches by 14 inches at 300 pixels per inch. And we always do it on a transparent background. Same thing for Affinity. If I'm going to create my artwork in Affinity, that's what I'm going to set up. So what we need to do is just look over here on the right-hand side of this panel. For you Photoshop users, if you look at this thing, it is very, very, very similar to Photoshop, right? In the way the program works, little differences here and there, but for the most part, if you're a Photoshop user and you're looking to jump, easy peasy. If you've never used either one, easy peasy, right? So what I'm going to do first, though, is I'm going to come over here to the right-hand side, and I'm going to change these millimeters to inches. And I'm going to set my page width, right? That's going to be 14 inches by 14 inches. 300 pixels per inch. That is a high resolution file. So that's what I like to work with for everything. Since I got a square, it doesn't really matter my orientation, right? So as I keep going down, my color format, this is a biggie. It's not really a biggie, but it's a biggie in the talk world, right? So funny thing is, I create everything I do right here to default RGB 8 bits, right? That's it. Everything I create, I do it in RGB format, because that is the best my image will ever look. That is RGB light coming from my monitor going straight into my eyes, right? And everything else, CMYK is a smaller color gamut, color space. It's got less colors available to us. And RGB has more. So if I'm going to create something, I might as well create it best possible. I can always assign color profiles and that sort of thing, and I can convert it and change the mode to a CMYK print if I need to for some reason. But the funny thing is, it'll take, I got a little Sawgrass printer hooked up to my machine, right? You can see this little PM, that's the print manager software. I have an Epson too, just got it, never set it up yet. But anyways, it's just a way for us to look at our image as good as it possibly can look. So let's keep going. The color profile here. If you have a profile that you got for your printer or something like that, and you want to put it up in here, you can. You can set it right here, whatever ICC profile you're using. sRGBs here. I use Adobe RGB 1998 when I create my artwork. Now I know, again, people use different things. You can always change it. You just convert that profile to whatever it is later if you want. So this little checkbox right here is extremely important, right? This is transparent background. I want everything I create to have a transparent background, because if I don't, then I got to remove that artwork off of a background and be able to control the underneath, the layer underneath, the background under, especially if I'm going to print something, let's say like direct to garment or something, I need a white toner that has a white included. Obviously for sublimation, we don't really have to worry about that a whole lot, but still, if you get into the habit, check this little checkbox right here. Now watch when I hit the create button, there it is, right? So these gray and white checkers, that is the indication universal for transparent pixels. So if I wanted to create artwork right now, I would go ahead and jump right on this thing and start doing it. So I'm going to spend like just a minute walking around the interface, because it's one thing to know to look at a tool. So if I mouse over this, right, it's going to say that's the view tool, right? I mouse down here, that's my move tool, and then so on. So I left all those little tool tidbits on. You can turn that off in your preferences if you want. Crop tool, selection brush tool is pretty awesome. You know, flood select tools. All these things are the tools. And as I mouse over them, I'll just stop and it'll name it for you, right? So if you click and hold on a tool that has a little, I don't know if you can see it very well on screen, but there's a little, on the bottom right of that tool, there's a little arrow, a little triangle. If I click and hold, it's just like Photoshop. There's tools that are nested inside that tool. The thing is, a little bit differently is, one, I dig this interface way better because my tools are in color, right? Photoshop's got gray stuff, no biggie. but they do that just so it doesn't interfere with what you're looking at necessarily. But here's my tools, and we're not going to use all the tools, right? I use a handful of tools all the time, and those are the ones I'm going to show you basically today. And you know, if there's something I don't touch on, you know, you can send me an email, and if I you know, if I get a chance, I can try to answer that somehow. So my email is Dane, D-A-N-E, at greatdanegraphics.com. All right, so basically this is it. Just here's my all my tools here, right? My undo brush there. This in painting tool is kind of my go-to as far as photo blemish fixes and whatnot, removing unwanted elements out of a photo. That's my go-to here. It actually defaults to this healing brush. So you see this little Band-Aid, same thing as Photoshop. It's got this, they got a patch tool here, blemish removals. You know, those are the things that you're going to find that when you get a photo from your customer, you're going to want to play around with that to mess with them. So going across the top, when I select a tool, I want you to look here, and Photoshop calls this the context bar, right? So I don't remember what Affinity Photo calls it. They call it something different, but all it is that's what controls the tool that you selected. So if I click on another tool, I want you to watch this little bar right here. It changes. Now, whatever tool I have selected, I can do those, make adjustments, set settings and things, and I can control the tool, right? So that's all you need to know. It works exactly like Photoshop in that instance. So every single time I click on a new tool, the stuff up here changes. And that is basically how it works. So I'm going to select a tool first, and I'm going to control it up here. I have my layers panel open, right? This right here is the adjustments panel. So I call that the Corvette engine. We're going to spend some time in here today for sure, because it is super powerful. And let's see, what else?
Hey, Dane.
Yay.
Do you have a manual that can help for this program?
So I don't have a manual, but I am literally right now, as we speak, working on a dye sublimation, artwork for dye sublimation book. Like I have DTG books, right? Vinyl cut books, white toner trainers, but I'm doing it in Photoshop and Affinity. So it will be full on all the lessons in each program. So that's coming. It'll be out at the end of the summer. But for right now, there is some stuff in the handout, like I said, so you know they can check that out.
And real quick, so I don't know if you sent me the handout, but if you will, after this session, I will upload it to
Yep.
to your session agenda, and you guys can view it in Hoova.
Not a problem. I can do that. Okay, so moving on, right? I'm just going to kind of show you the rest of it as we start working with it. So I'm going to go ahead and open a file now. Let's just go to File, Open. And I'm going to come in here. So by the way, here's a handout. Okay, so 3 pages. This optimizing, that's the most important thing I can teach you. Anytime I teach a class, and I've been doing this stuff since 1995, I've been teaching. I've been doing most of these same techniques since, because they work, right? And it takes less than 1 minute to make a file look better. And you know, the programs change, right? Photoshop changes, Affinity Photo changes. And this, what I'm gonna do, the way I do things, it's not the only way to do things, but it's the way that I like to do, because when you learn it, it becomes a habit and it works all the time. So it's one of those things that, you know, what is this? What happened here? You guys see that? That's weird. I have something on my screen that should not be there, and it is not cool. All right.
It's funny, but for some reason, there's something that everybody keeps doing where they're drawing on their screens, and I don't.
It's got to be the app, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know what it is. I hope it goes away when we're done, because I got a Cintiq that I work on, right? I got one of these pens and a drawing right on the glass when I pull it in my lap anyway. But so anyway, see, look at that. Wow. Interesting. Didn't even know what I did. I got another one going on. Okay, bizarro world. All right. What I wanted to show you guys was these files are going to be in the handout. Well, when you download them from the site, right? So there's that file here we're going to work with. That iris I just opened. Here's a kayak guy, and then we got a little sports car, right? So we're gonna, let me go ahead and first thing I want to do is optimize. We're gonna go here and we can optimize what we got in here. Let's take a look, see. Ooh, lots of pretty stuff. We'll do a couple of them. So I'm gonna get them in here and start on this one, right? So if you notice, it is an RGB file. Don't know if you can notice it here. JPEG, right? So what I want to do is over here on the right-hand side, my adjustments window. If for some reason you don't have that open to you, in Photoshop, you go to window, all your panels are there. But in Affinity Photo, you got to go to view menu and come down to studio, and here's all your panels, right? So I'm going to need my channels panel in a little while, and I see it's not open. See, there's no there's no little checkbox next to it. Come to studio, see there? So if I click on it now, it pops up here. So now we have the channels panel. So if you go back to view, come down to studio, you see it's got a checkbox on it, right? So if I want to hide it, just click it again and it unchecks it and disappears. See that? So remember, view studio, all the panels that it has. So if you want to get a panel up and always like different from the default settings, which I happen to have open here, you can do that. So I'll just pull it open. We're going to use it here in a little while. I don't need it right this minute. So I'm going to kind of tuck it over here somewhere. Okay, so what I want to do is we look at this image and it looks pretty good, right? It looks an iris, no big deal, but we're going to see if we can make it look nicer. So in the handout, again, just I'll show you this way like that, all the steps. So you don't have to try to write them down because it's a full page. It's like 6 steps and it's only a full page to explain each step for you, but this is going to explain it much better. So the first step we're going to do is we're going to remove the neutrals in our image. So I'm going to open up my adjustments panel and I'm going to scroll on up. See all these things we can do, right? What I'm looking for is selective color like that. Now, this is new to Affinity Photo, the latest version. They make me click my mouse again. Don't know why. I have to do that to get this panel up. So we're just going to go ahead and do it that way. And I'm going to move my window here, try to get us in between. Now, what I'm looking for is neutral. So if I click on this little drop-down menu, it's going to default to reds. It remembers what you did last time. And I only use this pretty much to come straight down to neutrals, right? And I have cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So if I come in here and I punch in a 3, I'm going to hit my tab key and I'm going to click on a 3 again, hit my tab and another one, right? I want to be careful not to hit my tab another time and put a 3 here because then it's going to be only 3% opacity. You're not going to see anything happening. So just be careful with that. And this relative checkbox, if I turn on and off, you can look at the preview here and you can see what it's doing. So we're getting rid of gray matter, right? Gray fluff that's in this image. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll tell you this, you're going to live for the most part between 3s and 8s. So let's just do a 6, right? 6, 6, and 6. And I'll turn on and off the checkbox here. You can see what it's doing. It kind of brightens it up because it gets rid of the gray, right? So that looks pretty good. Now here's the deal. Inside of Photoshop and inside of Affinity Photo, you can set this, it's an adjustment layer, right? So this is what I mean. If I just X out at this point and I go over here to my layers, you see that? Now there's 2 layers. I have my original pixel base, which is just my background. And if I turn on and off this little checkbox right here to make it invisible, right? You can see that's without it. That's as we opened it because I got the checkbox off. If I turn my checkbox on, that's with that adjustment. Couple things. I don't like to do it this way. It's non-destructive and all that sort of thing. And that's cool. I can respect that. And I totally understand that I don't want to ruin my image. But the deal is when I open an image at the end, I'm going to save as. Actually, in here, I'm going to export. And when I export, then I always have my original file. If you're a little nervous about that, you can right click on the layer and you can duplicate it, right? And you can turn off this background layer and just keep that one and work on that. A couple things about adjustment layers is when they start stacking themselves on top of the original, depending on if you got different photos and different elements and art pieces and you're doing blending modes and all kind of crazy goofiness, which I try to stay away from personally. When you save it, some of those those adjustment layers don't play well with each other, right? So sometimes it can get a little wonky when it's saved and you're looking at it like, wait a minute, something happened here. Then you got to go investigate, figure out what's going on and start merging individual ones. So I just don't worry about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and merge my stuff, right? So I got my layer here selected, I go to adjustments. I'll click on my selective color again, right? And I think 6 look good. We're at neutral, so got to make sure that's there. We go to 6, 6, 6, 6, put another 6 in there. And I'm gonna hit merge, right? When I merge it, if I go to layers, there is no adjustment layer on top of that one, right? It basically is adjusting or changing, making the adjustment to that layer. And there's another reason I'll explain to you when we get there. So second step is go to HSL. That means hue, saturation, and lightness, okay? So I click on it. Now I have to click on it again. It gives me these things. I can desaturate a bit, and I can invert the hue, and I can hit the default. Well, I always want to hit the default. Just give it to me. And that's how it used to be. So you just got to do 2 clicks now. I don't know. So here's the deal. These little buttons will affect the areas in your image. Now, for right now, in this particular step sequence, all I'm looking for is my saturation. So I'm going to juice it up. I'm just going to saturate it up a little bit. That looks pretty cool. Now watch this. If I go a little bit more, something like that, right? And I want to focus on this iris, but now I notice that, man, my greens are getting really, really green. These little buttons here, if I go to my green, select it, it's going to select just the green range, right? Just that area of my image. Now, if I can desaturate that a bit, I don't want to go, if I wanted to go all the way out, I can literally take all the green information out. Don't want to do it that way, but I do want to kind of kick it down, right? So this is where it is. And I just want to do like that. It just pushes it back a little bit and leaves my iris a little bit more top end, I guess, right? More dominant. Let's do something like that. So if I hit merge, I'll just show you there is no other layers, right? Which is how I like to work it, right? So my next step is my brightness and contrast. I'm going to click on that, and I'm gonna hit the default always, because that's all I want. I want to make my own adjustments. I don't want to say, let me go lighter, darker, because I don't know what those settings are going to be. When I do these things this way, I'm literally controlling everything I'm doing here. So right now I'm just going to put a 5 in the contrast. It's the only time I'll tell you, put a 5 in the contrast, hit merge, right? Or 5 in the contrast and hit OK in Photoshop. These steps are the same. And the reason is I just want a small bump in contrast. So if I do like this, you can see what's happening, right? I'm pushing some contrast in the image. I just want a super subtle bump, just a little bit. So let's go ahead and do that again. And I'm going to go ahead and merge it away. So it just helps in the in the story process. All right, so I'm gonna click on this. My next step is levels. So I'm gonna come to the top, click on my levels. Again, click on default. Now, this will only work in RGB, right? So I'm gonna set a black point, we're gonna set a white point, which means we're gonna compress the color range and make it jump. Now, if I just grab this black level, I wanna set a black point with this one. I can do like this, and I can't really tell exactly what's happening, right? But if I hold my Option key on my Mac or the Alt key on your PC, and now I move it, look what happens. I get all psychedelic. So what I'm looking to do is I'm looking in Photoshop, I would be moving to see black pixels, but this is a little bit different. I'm going to move it until I start seeing white pixels, right? And when I keep going, I'm holding my Option or the Alt key, right? And you can see first white chunks, white pixels right in here. So what that means is we just compressed our data and we got a black point, right? So we do the same down here for the white levels, right? So I'm gonna hold my Option key, the L key, click on this thing, and I'm gonna move. And this time though, the way it works in Affinity Photos, I'm gonna see black pixels where there's white pixel. So I'm not worried about the background, okay? I'm worried about my flowers. So here's some petals in my foreground color. Here it is. I'm looking for white pixels there. And basically, if you're a professional photographer, you're going to have a heart attack because we're blowing out the highlights. But I don't really care, because when I'm going to print that mug, I want the white of that mug showing. I don't want to print a 2% cyan or whatever, right? So what I'm going to do now is hold my Option key, click on my white, and I'm going to start moving it until I see black pixels. Well, there's black pixels. You can see them right up at the top. That's in the sky. Not worried about that. I'm going to keep going until I see some right there. See the bottom flower there? I got black pixels. I can stop. So now I got white in here, right? So that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit merge there, and you can see it like just compress the color range. It looks super cool. I'm gonna do like that. All right, so the next thing is where I'm gonna use my channels, okay? So I'm gonna pull this up here. So this is kind of a real high-end trick to sharpen images, but it's super easy. So I'm gonna go to Document and Convert Format ICC profile. So if you have special ICC profiles you want to load in, you can load them in here. But what I'm doing right this minute is I'm going to go to lab color, right? And I'm gonna hit convert, and I want you to see my channels. Nothing changes on screen. You don't lose any data or anything, but I see a lightness, composite lightness. That is the luminosity of my file. That's the detail. Now this one, when I turn on this A channel, right, and then this B channel, this mushy stuff right here, that's all the color information in my file. Not worried about that. I'm selecting just the lightness. Now if I go to filters, right, come down to sharpen and go to unsharp mask, the same one that Photoshop has, right? As long as my radius is set to 1, my threshold is at 0, I can do this. Now, what I want to do is, let me cancel for a second and kind of zoom in a little bit so you can see, whoops, on screen what's happening here. All right, I'll do that again. My composite channel is selected. I'm going to go to filter, sharpen, unsharp mask. Just hopefully you can see up here better, and change this radius here. See that? It starts to sharpen. Now watch, I'm gonna go all the way, and I wouldn't recommend it, but you can see every little minute detail. Then it starts to look a little grainy. So you just kind of find your happy medium like that. That looks cool. I'm gonna go ahead and apply it. Now I'm gonna change my mode, right? If I go back to document, convert format, and I'm gonna come in here and go to RGB, and I hit convert. Now I'm gonna turn up my red, green, and blue channels on, so I get all my images. So that's there. Let's see what happens when I go. Let's pull up my my view menu. View, studio, history, right? Can I go all the way back? Set visibility, select color adjustment. So that's kind of where I started. That's what we did to fix it. So you can control as much as you want with those steps. To me, when you do that, your image is slightly hot, and I mean hot, like a little bit oversaturated, which looks great because everything prints better that way, right? So it looks, I think that looks way better than the washed out, faded, fuzzy one, right? So that's file optimizing. Again, I got all the steps in the handouts, but then now the next most important question I get always is how do you work with color in this thing? In raster, not just this, in Photoshop or whatever, right? So I'm not gonna save this right now. I am gonna open up some images and we're gonna start working with color. I'm gonna come here, go to my session stuff, color changing. All right, so let's do this. We're gonna work on a couple of monochromatic images. I'm gonna open it up, and there we go. So that looks great if my team is gonna be blues, right? If I'm gonna put a logo in here with a high school name or something, and that's the team color, perfect. But what if it's not? What if they're green or red or whatever? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to HSL here again and pull up my hue, saturation, and lightness. Now, inside these buttons, always see it remembers, they always remember what you did last. So we were messing with the greens evidently, right? When I pushed them back. So hit this one, all the colors. That means it's gonna adjust everything. So when you have a monochromatic style image, which is all blues, all reds, whatever, all you gotta do is move this shift slider typically, right? Look at that. And we can change it. So you can find whatever color you're looking for, and it's going to work its way around this color wheel. And let's see. Let's just find a color. I don't know. What do you think? Red? Let's find us a red. Something like that looks pretty good. So if you want to saturate it more, you just saturate it up. If you want it darker, cardinal red or something, I can pull it back. Just got to be careful because it's going to pull back your highlights as well. But that looks pretty cool. If my color was green, same thing. I can make that adjustment here. I can desaturate it. And if I take the saturation all the way out, then I got a grayscale of anything, just so you know. That when there's no saturation, that means there is nothing. So that looks great. Hit merge, done, okay? So let's go ahead and do a different one. Let's try this one. Now this one looks pretty cool. It's red car, pretty slick looking. See what happens though. Let's click on this. And I'm gonna try to, there we go, get most of it in the view here. And all my colors selected, and we can just start changing it and moving it. Now, if you notice, there's some gray information in here. Now, if it was just gray, it wouldn't change color, right? But it's got a slight tinge to it. So you can make these adjustments this way. And let's say, I don't know, you want a green car? Do you want to desaturate it? Watch what happens. This is what I'm telling you. You can get the color, but when you do it globally, like without making any selections in here, it's going to make even my highlight areas darker. So this is the luminosity shift. I usually typically will only adjust it if I have selected or isolated a certain area. So I'm going to go back to 0 here. Just wanted to show you that because you'll lose your highlights if you use it. But you can find the color that you're looking for, whatever that is. And it's pretty slick and pretty easy, and hit emerge and you'll be good to go, right? So now that's the easiest way to change color. So basically you open it up. If it's monochromatic, just move that color wheel button and you're good to go. But what happens when it's a little bit more complicated? Now that's what I'm going to show you. So I like to say there's 3 levels of complexity, right? With a slider only, and as far as I labeled it here, that's just monochromatic style stuff. Move them, find your color, roll. The next thing is hue buttons, right? So it's when I'm going to open this, we'll work with some of these images. There's a kayak, there's this. So let's go ahead and use a 4-wheeler, I guess. Hit open. All right. So we got a 4-wheeler here and it is red. Well, the 4-wheeler I got is green. So maybe you want to make that adjustment. Okay. So go to HSL. Anytime I work with color, that's my first go-to always. Again, it becomes a habit and you can get there to the end result that you're looking for pretty easy. So, all right, I'm just going to leave this color because I'm looking at this image. It's pretty much monochromatic. I mean, I got black and grays and I got red, but I got little highlight colors, right? This yellow highlight accent color. So what happens if I start moving my hues, right? So maybe I can find a color that I'm looking for, right? There's green. Green looks pretty good, right? Well, then it still changes my secondary, that highlight color. So I may or may not like it. I kind of don't. So what we're going to do, let's go ahead and reset it. Hit the reset button. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell Affinity Photo, hey, just isolate, focus on the reds only. And now I can make it anything I want. And it's not going to affect that yellow because we isolated the reds. Okay. So what I can do is I can go ahead and find, I have a green one. Let's see if I can get somewhere in the ballpark of my green. My green is not that green. It is much less saturated, right? And it's darker. So this is where I might use my luminosity, and you still got to be careful, right? So we isolated the color. And when I start moving my luminosity down, you can see that, but it still loses a little bit. Watch, I'm gonna go all the way. It loses some of the highlight color, right? Just a bit. So I'm going to do something like this, something like that. Now, if I wanted to change that yellow highlight to something else, if I select it again, just click that button for those colors. If we didn't change anything before, now I can go ahead and make it whatever I want. See that? Well, maybe I like that. Whatever. So that's the super easy way. That would be the second level of complexity, right? So let me go ahead and do one more of these, and then we're going to jump into some other ones. Let's do this. All these images, these are all my stock stuff, right? Our Great Dane Graphics full color images. So come over here, click on my default, right? Click on my wheel there. So now again, if I want to start moving, look what happens. I can change everything in the image. Maybe you like that, even though he looks like he's a Smurf or something, I don't know. When you just move that slider, everything adjusts. You might get lucky and it might work. If it don't, what I'm trying to do is change the green because I want my kayak color to match his shirt color. Why not? So if I click on greens, right, and move that hue, look what happens. We can find something that works, okay? So we're gonna move it around. We're gonna try to find that orange color there. If I wanna saturate it up a little bit, there you go, easy peasy. So hit merge and I'm good to go, all right? So that's how you isolate and change certain colors. Now, what happens if it gets a little bit more difficult? And this is the kind of thing too, the one I'm gonna show you now. It's like the most complicated type of color change that I come across, really. Selection tool. So I'm going to do a couple of these. Let's see what we got. We got this guy. We got that guy. So let's do this one first because it's in your handout. The other guy's not. Just throw him in there. All right. So this firefighter is one of our stock designs again, but it's weird because it's hard to do. Like we create a stock design and there it is. Okay. Well, a lot of fire departments have red helmets. Those guys who look at that, well, that's not me. I can't use it. So, well, yeah, we can. So I'm just going to show you what happens. You go to hue saturation, right? I'm gonna click on this. Obviously we can change the hues, but if I want to change the yellows, I click on my yellows, right? And I start moving the hue just like I told you. But look what happens. It's moving all the yellows, right? It's making adjustments to the yellows because that's what we chose. Well, I don't want to do it that way. So I'm going to get out of this, right? So what happens when that happens, you have to isolate that area that you want to work with a tool. So we're going to use a selection tool, and I'm just going to zoom in over here a little bit. Now, if I come over to my tools and I mouse over this and see that says selection brush tool, I like to use that one. I also like to use the pen tool. I'll just draw a path around it and I can even save it and I'm good. But this tool here works pretty well. So I'm going to grab my selection tool, and my right bracket key will make my brush size larger. The left bracket key will make it smaller, right? So what I want to do right now, if I go to my layers, I'm going to get rid of this adjustment layer. I didn't know I created one by accident. So if I click here and drag, no shift key, right? I'm just clicking and dragging. And what it does is seeks out the edges, right? So I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller because I want to get that little piece of yellow. It's got some of that gray, right? So now if I hold my option key, the alt key, and mouse back over that, it'll get rid of that gray or deselect it. So I just want to make sure they have all the yellow stuff here covered or selected, right? We're due. So the helmet has marching ants around it. Now in Photoshop, I would hit Command H, but if I did that in here, it disappears on me. So it just hides the program. Photoshop just hides my selection. So I have marching ants. I like to get rid of those marching ants because they it kind of gets wonky, right? Distracting. So if you go to View menu, come down to Studio. Actually, you don't need Studio. Just go to Show Pixel Selection here. So if I deselect it, it's still selected. It's just not showing, right? So now if I go to my adjustments and pull up my slider here, I'm going to zoom out because I want to kind of get an idea of the red color. I'm going to go ahead and click on the all colors because I don't have to tell Affinity Photo to go to my reds because the yellows, because I've already made a selection of it, right? So now look, when I start moving it, see it's still selected, but it's just not showing me those marching ants where it distracts me. So what I can do is kind of find me a red that I like, and let's see where that is. I wasn't paying attention. Maybe they got purple helmets. I don't know. That's my favorite color. That's what I would want. All right, here we go. There we go. You saturate it up a little bit. That looks pretty cool. Hit the merge button. We're done, right? So isolated certain spaces and certain elements. Now, let's go ahead and keep moving because there's still a lot more we can spend. I can spend a day, 3 days, actually. We need to fix some stuff, don't we? So here, I'm going to show you this. This is the original, right? I'm going to show you how I would clean this up to look like this one. So this is the original. I'm going to go up here, and that's my cleaned up and optimized file, right? My colors are nice and saturated, right? But all the junk trash that was there when I shot this photo at the zoo, you know, that stuff ain't there. So you can take it as far as you want to clean up. So I just cleaned up all that trash, ugliness, right? Like that. See that? Just kind of back and forth so you can see what we're dealing with. So when you have stuff to eliminate out of your images, I'll show you how to do it. All right, so here it is. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up the mess, and then we can optimize it. And that's how I got it. So I'm not going to do all these little bits and pieces because it can take a few minutes to do since there's so much of it, but I'm going to show you some different tools that you can use to make it happen. So over here underneath my Band-Aid tool, right, that's my original. If I come over here, that's the healing brush. That's the top as default. All these tools here, though, are photo manipulation improvement tools, right? They can get rid of that stuff. So I'm going to use the healing brush, and we're going to click over here. Watch what happens. It says, hey, wait a minute. You need to click a source file. So I don't really use this tool because this, I don't know. I don't care to use it. So what that means though, just to show you, is I'm gonna have to hold my Option key of the Alt key and come over here. So I want to get rid of this, some of this trash and this water up in here. So if I hold my Option key or the Alt key, click, I just set my point, right? So it's just like a lot like the clone stamp tool. So I can do like that to get rid of it. The only problem with when you use that kind of tool is you have to be careful of where you're going to work. Watch. So I'm going to come over here and click this mouse, click that there, and I keep doing this way. See what happens? I just moved it, because as I move when I click it and click now and start moving, see that little cursor moves with it. So it's saying, hey, right here, every place I'm touching, I'm just going to kind of move it that far away. Well, I don't like this brush for that reason, because it gets a little too wonky sometimes. I got to pay attention. I don't pay attention very well. Never did. So now we can use this patch tool, right? That's the next one. So patch tools work pretty cool for bigger stuff. So if I click and drag around this, right, look, like this spot here. Now watch now though. So I'm moving my mouse around, right? So it's starting to, where do I want? I want to kind of fill it in with this stuff. So I double click there, right? And then hit my return key. I'll double click outside of it again, sorry. And then I just fixed it. So what I do? So I'm gonna click in here and use my just select that area and come over here, double click and double click again. And I just fixed those. It works for larger areas like that pretty slick. So let's do that again over here, right? And I'm gonna set it up, just double click and do it again, and it sets it. So pretty cool tool, works for big stuff. Little stuff like this will drive you crazy. But if I click over here and I look at my blemish removal tool, I can say that 3 times fast. Right bracket key, remember, increases my brush size. Left bracket key decreases it. So now I can just sort of click over it. So I got to mouse over something large enough to make an adjustment that I'm looking for. That's a dust on my screen. You wondering why I clicked in there and didn't do anything? All right, so here we go, here we go, here we go. Well, literally, I'm just clicking my mouse, and you know, it's holding the space bar, get you grab your hand, so now I can move around a little bit and click on that.
Hey, Dane.
Yes.
A couple of people are asking if they can take a photo and turn it into a cartoon.
You know what? I don't know. I don't do that. But if you can, it would be in this filter stuff, right? There's a liquefy things. I don't know that they have.
Dane,
yeah.
Sprite. I signed up. Affinity does a class every Friday morning, and their artists turn photos into cartoon looking like drawings. It's amazing.
There you go. That's something I don't do, right? I just draw my own, so I wouldn't know, but that's cool. Thanks for now I know. Might have to check it out. All right, so as I move it around, I'm just gonna click on that so you can see what's happening, right? We're cleaning it up. So we did that already, and I'll show you it finished one more time, because I'm gonna keep going here. This is the finished version. So you can see we got rid of a lot of stuff. Then we optimize it. Once I got all the junk out of the way, I optimize it. We got some nice saturated color. I dig it. Okay, let's keep moving. We got what, 10 minutes, 5 minutes or so, whatever it is. All right, so how do we get stuff out of photos? So let's open this one here. Okay, so cute little photo of Chloe, but we got some graffiti going on. So a couple ways, right? So remember, we just used some of those things. Let's go over to patch tool, right? Think of patch tool as working for larger elements, right? So if I come in here and I start drawing with my mouse, this is the only weird thing is when I go that way and I come down and I got to come this, it's kind of wonky as far as the way it works. But if you just click and stick with it, then you'll see what it's doing and you'll be able to kind of go over everything. Moving my mouse out, right? And double click there. I'll just double click again. I just got rid of that stuff. So same thing here, patch tool still selected, come in here, right? Let's just kind of get rid of that. Mouse out this way, See, sometimes when it goes to the edge of a photo, this works the same way or very similar in Photoshop. It will do weird stuff like this. It's still pretty easy to do if you try it again, right? Because it got rid of most of that, but now it's going to pull from that grass. See that what happens there? Watch when I mouse over. See that dark spot at the top? I'm going to deselect it because I don't want to go that close. So if I come in here like this, and now I just kind of mouse this way. Didn't want to do it. So let's go to my go-to. I dig the in painting tool because this is why I can go ahead and say, I can see where it's going to pull pixels from to fix and see if I like it there. Right. Just reading takes a little bit. Like, see, I got a little straight line here and I got a straight line here. Now that could look like pressure washer or something. Trying to clean the graffiti off. If I did like that, then it should make an adjustment good enough for us to not see that I duplicate it, right? So one cool tool. Let's do another one here. Let's see what we got. All right, everything looks great except that shoe. Whoops, got somebody's foot. So again, the in painting tool is my go-to just about all the time. That's where I'm gonna go first, right? I just wanted to show you the other ones because they all work, but I can see what's happening here. Now, if I do like that, let it go, let's see what it does. Kind of like the content aware tool in Photoshop. I don't like this two straight lines right here. So if I come over and grab my clone stamp tool here, right? And just sort of, I don't know what I want to do here. Let's see. Let's click here. And you can see what's happening. I'll just draw it in. Now it looks like part of that rock. No one's going to know that I just did that, right? Unless they see the one with the foot in next to it, which no one ever does. You always fix those things. Let's see what this one is. All right, only got a couple. Oh, they got people up here. Let's get rid of them. Cute kids and all, but we don't want them in there. All right, same thing, right? So my rock just got a divot. Now, I also see a little piece of a hand left in there. So if I click on that, let's see what happens. Now I got two straight lines. Remember, let's go right back to your clone stamp tool. And you can kind of draw that in. So I put a little green grass blob in there, no biggie. That looks pretty good, right? Like they were never there ever. So one more, then I think we're kind of done time-wise. No, we're not. I got 2 minutes. I'm going to max out my time, y'all. All right. So little flower, got at the zoo on my same little trip. Got some holes in it though, right? So go to my in painting. Watch what happens. Click on that. Drag it. Let's see. That works. And do like this, right? Those little bitty subtle changes and then optimize, then you're going to have something. Okay. One more thing I wanted to show you, because this happens kind of a lot, right? So we got this image. Customer gives you these because you guys get perfect professional level photos from customers all the time, right? You don't have to do any of these fixes, I'm sure. So that's kind of dark, right? If I printed this, what am I going to see? Bunch of black mush. So what I can do to fix it is if you think in terms of the optimizing steps, right? What I want to do now, though, I'm looking at it. This doesn't look that good. So I'm going to go to my levels, right? Click on my default again. And see this? This is the histogram. This shows me where all the color data is. All the color data in this file is slammed over to the shadow side, right? But you see this gamma here? If I grab that mid-tone, that middle button, and I move it towards the ramp, watch what happens. Look at that. Okay. So I'm going to move it over somewhere around here and I'll hit merge, right? And then now run all my 6 steps, which I don't have time for, but you get the idea. That's a way to improve. And it's exactly the opposite. If something is kind of too washed out, do the same thing. Just go the other direction. You take this slider, right? You take the mid-tone, this gamma, see the colors here, and you push it towards the ramp like this. And it reveals all that stuff that was hidden. I hit the merge now, run my 6 optimizing steps, and I got a killer image. All right, so I think I'm out of time though. Got any questions or anything, Sprite or?
A lot of people are asking about the handouts.
I'll send them to you.
Yeah, he's gonna send them to me. I'll upload them.
You can also, if they go to greatdanegraphics.com, right, /Condi-webinar, they can download the art files. I don't know if you have that capability, but.
Okay, hold on, say that again. Great.
Yep, it's greatdanegraphics.com /Condi-webinar, and then they can download the art files that are in it as well.
/Condi/webinars.
Yep. No S. Webinar.
Oh, okay. Well,
Because it's a web page, so you got to get there specific. greatdanegraphics.com /Condi-webinar. You get the handout and the files, and I will be emailing the handout to you here in a minute. That's right. Thanks for having me, though. I had a blast.
very much. I'm just trying to pull the web. Apparently I cannot. Here we go. I got it. All right. I'm gonna put it in the chat for everybody.
There you go.
There you go. And I'm gonna put it in the Zoom chat. Where is it? There it is. Whoops. All right. Great. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you guys.
I'll hopefully see you very soon, Dane.
All right. That works. Thank you.